Within weeks of moving to Broadcasting House, Manx Radio found itself berated by the BBC as a pirate radio station. Some hapless producer on the BBC's 24 Hours programme that went out on December the 9th, 1969, allowed the distinctly inaccurate announcement to be made that the Isle of Man government had spent £50,000 to purchase a pirate radio station, and that Manx Radio was a pirate radio station on an international wavelength. Manx Radio, backed by Tynwald, promptly filed an action for libel in the Manx High Court, and when the case was heard a few months later, the BBC was required to pay £1,000 in damages. This was very welcome because it just saved the company from making a loss on the year's account. Indeed, the early months of 1970 were an unsettling time. The politicians Geoffrey Crellin and Victor Neil made no headway in negotiations with London to increase the power of transmission, the station was making little profit, and there were policy disagreements between the directors, chaired by Peter Hyde, and the manager Ray Joyce. These culminated in Ray Joyce's resignation in the spring. He was replaced as manager by Peter Neil, who was no relation of Victor, who had joined Manx Radio at the start and made his name as a sports reporter and the voice of the TT in particular. However, unlike Ray Joyce, he was not a technician, and the directors felt that they needed the advice of an experienced technician at director level and suggested suitable names to Tynwald through the Broadcasting Commission. Unfortunately, their suggestions were not accepted. Now, the directors were all busy men who had other responsibilities, and their work for Manx Radio was done out of an interest in the job and not for the very modest director's fee. They all came to the conclusion that they were not prepared to do the job if Tynwald would not respect their recommendations, and they resigned en bloc on June the 30th. As Manx Radio's shareholders were the Manx government, it fell to the Governor's Executive Council to decide what to do next. Should a new team of directors be appointed? Should a concession be granted to one or other of the consortiums which had expressed interest in running the company? The Attorney-General, David Ley, had on previous occasions expressed his personal opinion that if Manx Radio were to become a department of Tynwald, it might then have a chance of being accepted as an agency of the Crown. This might mean, he suggested, that a broadcasting licence from the postmaster would not be necessary, and that the station could operate on increased power on the authority of the Governor. Swayed by this possibility, the Executive Council created a management structure for Manx Radio which made some sense in the circumstances, but seemed highly confusing to outsiders. Geoffrey Crellin and Victor Neil would continue to be chairman and vice-chairman of the Broadcasting Commission, but would also become directors of Manx Radio, together with 3 newly appointed non-Tynwald members who were clearly there to save Manx Radio from being entirely under political control. This system was in place by July the 1st, 1970, with Victor Neil as chairman of the new directors. Both Crellin and Neil took on the responsibility of actually running Manx Radio with considerable reluctance, and only after heavy pressure from the Executive Council. To critics of the arrangement in Tynwald, Crellin could only say, "Probably the last thing in the world that I want to be, I am sure that I speak for Mr. Neil in this matter also, is a director of Manx Radio, which of course will be unpaid."